Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Dux Soup webinar, where Giles, the head of professional services, will show you how to use Dux Soup Turbo and create easy automated workflows with Zapier and Integromat. We also have a live chat where you can ask questions related to this webinar, and we will have a Q&A with Giles at the end of this webinar and presentation. Thank you for joining us today, and let's start our webinar.
Thank you, Jin, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone joining today's Dux Soup webinar. As always, we are delighted that you're able to join us, be that either live or on the recorded version. For anybody who's new to these webinars, my name is Giles Garnett, and I'm Head of Professional Services here at Dux Soup and have been for the last couple of years. I also do the booster calls and the technical calls, so if you need additional assistance and book those through our website, you will probably end up speaking to myself. As always, our webinar is being recorded and will be available to anybody who's subscribed to this in advance, and it'll also be made available to everybody via our website and our YouTube channel in the coming days. The topic of today's webinar, as you can see on the screen, is how to build simple and easy workflows using Dux Soup Turbo and either Zapier or Integromat. So I will be focusing on Dux Soup Turbo today, and in the demo, I'll be looking at how to work that within Integromat and or Zapier. As always, Jin will be keeping an eye on the web chat, so if you have any questions, please do ask, and do try and keep those questions on topic so they're useful for everyone in the audience. Any other questions that you have, you please raise through our websites through the usual support channels. Rather than lots of slides today, most of what I will do will be in the demo, so keep your eyes open and keep your eyes peeled. Just in case there's anybody on the call who's new to Dux Soup, it is a Chrome extension, compatible with also other Chrome-based browsers, which you can use to mimic human behavior on the LinkedIn platform. You select a list you want Dux Soup to process, and then you get Dux Soup to run your chosen activities against that list. Dux Soup is based upon mimicking human behavior. It's a robot that acts in the most human way as possible. You control the throttling, the number of activities that you carry out per day with the robot. And with Dux Soup Turbo, you can then integrate with other systems and, as we're going to see here, create some automated processes. So, Dux Soup Turbo and automated workflows. Why would you want to do this? Well, you may want to automatically capture your LinkedIn data or activities. You may want to receive notifications when contacts accept your invitation, or maybe notifications when contacts reply to you. There are a whole host of reasons why you may want to do this. Which platform you choose to handle your data in, that's up to you. But for today's demo, I'm going to do this all using a fairly straightforward and simple Google Sheet. But you know, there are a multitude of CRMs, databases, other sort of places that you can put this data and manage that on your own. And what I'm doing here is basically an example of what is possible. You should take what I've created here as a sort of the basis for an idea and take it forward based upon your personal requirements. There's a lot of people that I speak to who do work in Google Sheets, but a lot of also work then within a CRM. So depending on your requirements, you may want to capture more or less data, but what I'm going to show you here is what can be done, and we'll go from there. So rather than spending any more time looking at slides, I have created here a very simple Google Sheet, and I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what I've got here. There we go. So I've actually created here a Google Sheet for today's demo, and I've got here 4 different tabs just really to reflect the new way that you can gather data from Dux Soup using Zapier. I'm capturing visit data, I'm capturing message data here. I've got another tab here which is for new connections, and then another one there where I'm capturing actions. So hopefully those of you who are on the call are familiar with what I mean with all of this terminology. If you have questions, fire them towards Jin, and we may have time to cover them at the end if they're appropriate. And what I want to do is show you the new way of being able to capture data. So rather than using the webhooks that we've previously used all the time, we're going to create some new Zaps, not using webhooks. And I can show you how that works. So here within Zapier, you go to zapier.com and create your own your own account there. What I've done here is I've actually created a Zap already called All Visits for today's demo. And we'll walk through this one and I'll show you the data that I'm capturing here. And then I'll show you the other possibilities. Now, previously here, we always used to then go to a webhook, create a webhook, and then have the data go through the webhook functionality. But as you can see here now, the trigger, we can see here, we have the possibility to grab new profile visit event data in Dux Soup. So here we then choose the trigger event, and I will come on to some of these other ones shortly, but I'm going to start with just this new profile visit event. So we're going to capture a visit event, and now I can then check to make sure that I link my Dux Soup account there so that it's coming from the correct place, and then I can set up my trigger. Now there are some filters here which are reflective of some of our other functionality with the integrations as well, and you can choose here to include all events, to include maybe events only from first degree connections, or maybe events that include an email address, or maybe just from first degree connections and an email address. Now I'm just going to include all events here for now, just to be able to demonstrate this as simply as possible. I can now test the trigger, and here we are. I've got some sample data here from a visit that I've carried out previously. Let's see if I've got some more up-to-date data. Maybe not. There we go. Well, we'll use one of these. There we are. We'll use this one here. I'll press continue here. Now I've already mapped my spreadsheet data into this Zap. And by the spreadsheet data, I mean here, if I go back to my spreadsheet, these columns here that I've set up, the ID, the visit time, the profile, etc., all of this data here, I've mapped across into this Zap. So if I go back to here and I create my spreadsheet row in Google Sheets, we can see here again, I've just chosen to create a spreadsheet row. You know, you could do in a more complex version a lookup against the data, so you're not ending up with duplicate data. But in this case, I'm just looking at just creating a spreadsheet row as I do it. Here I can choose my action, choose my account, and this is where I set up my action. And this is where I've mapped all the data that comes out of Dux Soup, and mapped all of the information across into the correct fields. If I now close that and I turn it on, there we go. Let's turn this on. There we go. And now what I need to do is get Dux Soup to carry out some automatic visits to some profiles. So I'll go to, let's go to here. There we are. We've got a list of people here, and I will go to my Dux Soup options. Hopefully, and I'm not going to carry out anything automatically. I'm literally just going to carry out some visits. There we go. And make sure that the planner is active. Where are we with Tuesday? There we go. We'll save that. And what I'll do is I'll now go back to here, and I'm just going to visit a couple of these profiles, and we should see then these people's details then appear in my spreadsheet automatically. If I press that and OK that, and I've not had to do any of the webhook stuff this time. You can see Dux Soup's now active, and it's going to open a profile down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And as it gathers the data from each of these profile visits, they should then, based upon my my Zap here, the data should then appear here in my, there we go, it has appeared in there. It's played around with the formatting of it because I've not put certain things on, but there you can still start to see the data being populated in there, because that's a very big cell, a big amount of data in there. Then it's not going. I've not got word wrap on there, so there we go. But you can now see, hopefully here, that the data is starting to come across, and you can see the information coming through accordingly as I visit some profiles. Not a particularly good example because they have a huge amount of text in their summary. There we go. So there's a new one just come in there. There we go, and another one with a huge amount of data in their summary. So as you do this, you start to learn which data you want to gather and which data you don't want to gather. But what you can see here is that it's very straightforward. Now, rather than having to use the webhook information that we used before, being able to just use the trigger event of the inbuilt integration now with Dux Soup in Zapier. And when I say about the webhook stuff, I've got a couple of webhooks in here, but these are related to Integromat, which we'll come on to a bit later. So if I just stop the robot there a second, so we don't visit too many others. There we go. Let's stop that one there. There we go. Right. Let's wait for the screen to wake up. There we go. All right. So what I would like to show you now is that because this is a very simple visit one, what I'm going to do now is set up another one just as an example here to show you how you can capture other information. So if I go to my back to my spreadsheet again, we can see here that, for example, incoming messages. I might want to capture all of my incoming messages here. So here, I can then do that using Dux Soup and Zapier. If I create a Zap here, so don't need to worry about the webhook stuff anymore. So I'm going to give the Zap a name. This is incoming messages. And here now under my app event, I can go to Dux Soup, go to the latest version. And this is where I choose my trigger event. And this is where I want to say, yep, I've got a new LinkedIn message event. Excellent. And I press continue. Again, you link your Dux Soup account based upon the credentials that you've got in your Dux Soup remote control credentials. And we go down here. There we go. There's my, I'll link my account there. We'll press continue. Test the trigger, and I should now get some sample data through based upon recent activity. There we go. So there's a couple of events here. So we'll take that one there. All right. So we'll press continue. And now what I want to do is I want to map my data here. So these are the columns that I've got here, various information which I particularly want to gather against each of these this information. If I come back to my here and I go to Google Sheets. And again, here, what I want to do is I just want to create a new spreadsheet row. You could, of course, do the update. You could do a lookup first and then append information, for example, if you're building a more complex solution. If I press continue there, again, choose my account, choose the correct Google account. And this is where I now have to find my spreadsheet, and it's in my Google Drive, and it's the webinar demo, hopefully the one at the top. There we go. And now I choose the worksheet. Now I created 4 worksheets, and this is the one I want to put the information in. For this instance, that's the messages one. And this is where I now need to map my data. So my from ID, if I look here, I can go down here. It's their profile of the sender, profile ID of the sender. There we go. That's that one. Timestamp, very important to know when that message has been received. There we go. The URL that it's come from, so the profile URL of the sender. Important information, first name and last name. Then the text of the message. And so if I go down here, there's the text of the message. And now I can even get the hyperlink of the message as well. So I can have a direct link to the conversation. And then just for reference as well, if I've got tags against this profile already, I can gather those as well. And for some reason, I can't see those there, but they are usually there in the data. Okay, well, we'll move on from that for now, and we can now just have a look at some test information. We press test to continue. And what we should see then is we'll see that information now appear here in the spreadsheet. So I can see here that this message came in on the 23rd of September. That's who it came from. That was the person who sent it to me. And there's the URL of the person who sent it through. So this way we can now listen out for all incoming messages, seeing who's responding to us. It gives us a way to be able to track things, which is really handy because it can help you to see how effective or not your campaigns are, or your different campaigns. Now we can do exactly the same with new connections. So new first degree connections. We can have Dux Soup listen out for new connections and pull that information directly into via a Zap into a spreadsheet. So once again, we won't turn that one on for now, but we'll just create another new one. There we go. We'll create a new Zap, and we'll call this one new first degree connection. So these are people who are joining your network. So new first degree. There we go. And similarly to what we did last time, we're going to again use Dux Soup as the trigger, because this is where we now have all of these very handy trigger events, a new LinkedIn connection. So this is listening, or basically getting the information as to when people join your network. And this is a really handy one to demonstrate something else as well in a second, which we'll do. So again, that one. So this is somebody who's joining your network. We'll test the trigger as before. There we go. So I've got a couple of examples here. So we'll use this data here. There we are. There's a new first degree connection. Now, as well as doing the Google Sheets thing here, we'll do that one and we'll have that information sent to my Google Sheet. We'll create the spreadsheet row. There we go. And again, just mapping all the data again and again and again. Of course, once you've done this once, then it should all happen automatically as you've saved it. And I'm going through this fairly quickly, but it's not that exciting to watch. It's fairly tedious when you've had to do it again and again and again. Webinar demo, and again, we want to make sure we choose the correct worksheet within this spreadsheet. And this is my new connections one. Okay, and then once again, we have the data that we want to map from our effectively from the data that's been sent through. So the profile ID of the new connection, timestamp. Where's the timestamp? When the invitation was accepted, the URL of the person who's accepted the invitation, and then first name, last name. That's first name. And last name. And there's the tags one. I probably missed it on the last one. There we go. It is there. Dux Soup tags of the connected profile. There we are. So we're going to continue with that one. Now, one of the other things that we have now with, if I test and continue with that one as well. So we now, there we are. We see that one also then appear in this spreadsheet here automatically. Now, one of the other things you can do here. Oh, let's go back to the setup. What you might want to do here as well is this is where you can make use of all of the new remote control commands that are available within both Zapier and Integromat, and I'll show these in Integromat in a minute as well. If we go into here, we go to Dux Soup, remote control, that one there. Yes, here we go. We go to our Dux Soup, and we now, because this is no longer a trigger event, this is an action event. If we look at the Dux Soup one here, we can now see these are all the options that we have to be able to send remote control commands. And previously we could only send, I think it was a visit, a connect, and a message. As you can now see, we can actually visit profiles, we can enroll profiles into a campaign, we can connect, message, in-mail, save as a lead, follow a profile, endorse, all of the normal actions that you can see within the Dux Soup environment. So for example, here, this is somebody who's accepted your connection request. You've created them, you've put them into your spreadsheet with a new row. And maybe now at this point, this is where you want to perhaps enroll them into a campaign, or at least visit them to be able to gather their latest information. So here you could, for example, just do a visit profile, and then you press continue. And again, you have to make sure that it's connected to the correct account somewhere. There we go, that's the one. And then all you need to do is then set up the action to say, well, where's the profile URL that it's coming from? Well, it's coming from the original set of data, and that's it there, profile URL of the connection. There we go, we can just press on there. And that will automatically, you can then put a delay in there, for example, or whatever, but this way you can set up an action to carry out an auto visit to your new first degree connection and put this all to within one Zap because of the way that we now are able to do this. Now, if you wanted to, for example, rather than just visit a profile, you wanted to maybe enroll them into a new campaign, you could do that. And we'll just, again, make sure it's connected to the right account. Again, you select the URL of the person that you're, or the field, make sure that field is mapped correctly. And then here you can choose from your, from all of your different campaigns that you've set up within within Dux Soup. So here we go. Let's find this one. It should in a second find all of my campaigns. So if I said, for example, wanted to enroll this person into concept webinar schedule, you can see there that that's how you would be able to do that. If I now press continue, it would be then sending an enroll command to this new connection as and when they became a first degree connection. Now, of course, there's different scenarios whereby you'd want to use this, depending if they may have become a first degree connection through a campaign already, but in some cases not. But hopefully this gives you a taste as to all the different options that you have to be able to gather information from these activities. What I want to do is sort of give you the idea that there are lots of possibilities now, especially now that we're no longer reliant on the webhooks within Zapier. Just finally in Zapier, let's just show you the last one here in order to capture your actions. So you can see here, if you want to enroll somebody into a profile of any of those actions that you're carrying out, let's just show you how you can capture that data as well. Again, create a new Zap, and this is just capturing actions. There we go. And here again, once again, we're just going to use Dux Soup. There we go. And we're just going to basically, this is the trigger that's captured when an action is executed. So if you've got, for example, a series of campaign messages due to go out, every time one of those actions is completed, that would then get logged in this particular place. So once again, map the correct account. There we go. Test trigger. And similarly here, we should get, there we are. So we've got that one there, enrolling myself into a campaign. And again, we'll just go to Google Sheets, create a spreadsheet row, and this way you can have a sort of a complete track of all of the history of the activity that you've carried out using Dux Soup within the LinkedIn environment. Let's press continue, and then very shortly, there we are. We then have to select the correct spreadsheet as always. There we go. This time we'll choose the actions worksheet. And then here, similarly, we are going to capture the information. So the action, because there's all sorts of different actions, it could be message profile, it could be saves PDF, it could be follow profile, any of those sorts of actions that you would be carrying out. You can then track there. And of course, you could put filters in here as well to make sure you're only capturing certain actions. There's all sorts of different possibilities there. So let's just make sure that we're getting the right information, target profile, URL, and which campaign it was. So in this case, I think it was there you are, concept webinar schedule. There we go. If I press continue there, and very shortly, test and continue. There we go. And we can now turn that one on, and then it would then monitor all of the actions that were being carried out within LinkedIn, all without having to go through the slightly more complicated way of being able to set up a webhook and test to make sure the data is coming through, etc., etc. So this way it gives you much more flexibility to work within this environment. I'm going to turn that one on in case we do anything in a bit that we can then show how that's appearing. So there we go. We'll do that. So that's Zapier, and that's the different triggers and the remote control commands within Zapier. If we now go to Integromat, hopefully everyone's keeping up here. I've set up a couple of scenarios here already within Integromat, and unfortunately you still have to use webhooks within Integromat. And what I've got here is I've got, for example, here the exact same scenario here where I've carried out some visits, and yeah, I'm capturing all of that same data actually in the same spreadsheet that I've got here already. So I could actually, let's go back to here. I could process this queue, and let's go back to the scenario. Let's turn it on There we go. If I turn on that queue, so I've set this one up already with, as you can see here, it's capturing all visits, and then I've already mapped the fields here across in Google Sheets. Just wait for this to load. So I've already mapped all of the information across there. And if I now run this, what we should see is some data then appearing in my spreadsheet here. Further down, yeah, it's probably bringing in the same data again because it's just the same data that I was capturing through Zapier. But essentially, now I've built the same scenario here. What I need to do is just turn it on. There we go. If I leave that running, I'm sure it'll just tick through that shortly and go through. What I think is probably more interesting for you guys watching this is actually to see the remote control commands from Integromat as well. So I've actually built a second one here, which basically is doing listening out for new first degree connections. So this one here is I'll just show you. This is listening for new connections, and this here is my webhook URL. I've copied that into, in exactly the same way as we used to do, into my Dux Soup options. Let's open my options again, which I've obviously closed. We go to our connect one, and we see here this one here is the one. Yeah, I think that's the one, the message one. It's listening out for new connections, people who are becoming a first degree connection. And what I'm doing then is with that one I put a filter in here to say, yep, this is just listening for people who've accepted my invitation. And then what I'm doing here is I'm using that to then visit the profile. Actually, what we'll do is we'll just, let's delete that and let's just show you how that looks. So if I've got a new connection here, if I add a new module and I say, yeah, Dux Soup, you'll see here, all of these are the remote control activities or actions, I should say, that can now be used. These previously, again, we only had the visit, message and connect, but now of course we have all of these other activities here as well. So if you wanted to, for example, visit the profile, this is where you would then map the URL. So you can see here, this has come from this particular URL, and I'd press OK. Now maybe what I'd want to do then is also then perhaps put a pause into this particular scenario. So I could say here, for example, sleep for 5 minutes. There we go. And then maybe after 5 minutes, I would then want to maybe send them a direct message or send them a message, or maybe even enroll them into a campaign. And again, here, what I can do is then choose their profile. There we go, and then here I would then put in the campaign ID, which I'd need to gather from back within Dux Soup. But yeah, I could then put in my campaign ID here, which I think I'd have to grab from my Dux Dash. Let's have a look. So if I wanted to enroll them into this one, there you are. That's my campaign ID here. Concept webinar schedule. I think I need to probably just copy that across. And I think, yes, I just need to do it that way. Okay, so now what I've done is I've now got my watch event listening for new connections. As and when I've got the new connection, I will visit the profile. What I might then want to do is have that populate into a spreadsheet with and update the person from a second degree to a first degree connection, sleep for 5 minutes, and then enroll them into my campaign, which then, of course, you would take forward from there. Of course, your campaign then, if it's a first degree connection, would then be based upon, for example, the time delay from the moment that they've become a first degree connection, and they would then get all of those appropriate follow-up messages. But this way you can also, for example, build an entire campaign within this environment as well, putting messages in under a time delay, for example, pausing them for however long you want, a number of days or whatever, or until after a certain date. So this gives you extra flexibility with regards to that as well. Okay, so we've talked about the new way to be able to trigger integrations and data flows within Zapier, how much more straightforward it is now without the webhooks being required, the different remote control commands that you can use within Zapier, and then also we've touched on briefly in Integromat as well, how the watch events work, as always, same as always, and then how you can then use all the different remote control commands there as well. So hopefully that's been of use to you. We have pending, any minute now almost, a new release of Dux Soup due to be released very shortly. It's actually been published to the Chrome store, and version 7.9 should be available within the coming hours to users. If you're using free range, I believe it's already available. And what that is basically a couple of fairly major updates, one relating to an auto pause function with regards if you're out of invites, if Dux Soup picks up that you're out of invites for the week, there's a pause functionality, so it won't continue to try to send invites. And then the other one is relating to being able to enroll people in multiple campaigns. As you're aware, if I just go to a search result, there we go. Currently, let's wait for that to pop up. We go to wait for the Dux Soup tricks to pop up on the right-hand side. There we go. Currently, you can only enroll people in a single campaign. With the new release, you're going to be able to enroll people into multiple campaigns. Yeah, that hopefully will give people a lot more flexibility, and you'll have a drop-down box here where you can choose which campaign you wish to enroll them into. So there's a fairly big update coming out in the coming hours, which hopefully will be useful for everybody. So yeah, we've talked about those bits and pieces. Let's have a look. What did we cover? We talked about the new Dux Soup triggers in Zapier, no need for webhooks. We've looked at the extended remote control commands in Zapier and Integromat and how to bring it all together in your chosen database. I've shown you here the very simple platform of Google Sheets. There are many others available. And if you're doing that in other platforms, try and use the user ID, the profile ID, that number, that unique number that each profile has within LinkedIn as your unique identifier, because that way you can make sure or minimize the risk of having duplicate records. It does happen sometimes because of the speed that databases write at. There's sometimes a small break in that, but yeah, usually we see that if you use that ID as your unique identifier, as your lookup, you hopefully then reduce any chance of duplicate records and that sort of thing. Okay, that's everything that I was going to talk about today. Just a quick promotion for in 2 weeks' time. We're going to be talking about, again, a turbo related product topic, how to create smart LinkedIn lead generation campaigns. So we're going to be looking there about the campaign functionality within Turbo, also looking at some of the new functionality there with how to use multiple campaigns in parallel. So hopefully you'll be joining us for that. Also need to promote the boosters and technical sessions, which you're very welcome to book through our website, through the support team or through the support website. If you go to our support pages and just look up booster call or technical session, then you will find the links to those places where you can book those calls. Yeah, there's plenty of time slots available, so get booking. And then our usual links page, which I'll put up in a second as I'm answering questions. So over to Jin, do we have any questions?
Hey, yes, I have one question, which is, can I trigger messaging from Zapier using URLs?
Can I trigger messaging from Zap using URLs? As long as you have the URL of the target profile, you can trigger messaging, yes. So basically, let's go to Zapier. As long as you have a source of the URL. So say, for example, now one scenario I was looking at with somebody the other day, so they have LinkedIn URLs within their CRM. And at the moment that a profile changes status within that CRM, that's their trigger event. So you always need a trigger event at the start of your Zap. And the trigger event in this case was changing their status from, I don't know, status A to status B. And when a when a profile moves to status B, that's the point at which they wish to send a message. And yeah, as long as you've got that trigger event there, I think I've got an example of this. Let's have a quick look. But I'll tell you what we can do. We can just build a very quick example. If Zapier wakes up. Bear with me 1 second. So if I just very quickly create a Zap here, so you could, for example, we were talking there about this change of status, but we'd say here is under Google Sheets, choose an event. So if there was a new spreadsheet row or an updated spreadsheet row, would also be an example. Let's just find, there we go, find an appropriate spreadsheet. So I'll just use the one that I was using just now. That one there. Which worksheet? Well, the worksheet would be, well, let's go for the new connections one. And then the trigger here, well, which column would I want to listen out to? In this case, I would want the URL, because that's the URL that I would want to be listening out for. I want that URL is key for them being able to say, yes, there's a new URL there, so I now want to carry out an action against that. Let's just test that. So there's a new row there. And then here, this is when you would say, for example, say, well, I want to send a message to that person. You go to Dux Soup, and then here you would say, yeah, message the profile, direct message to that person. And in this case here, you would then just continue, link your account accordingly. There we go. And then you set up the action. So what's the URL that you want to go to? It's this one here. It's in that new row. It's that from URL data in this case. If I just show you where that's come from, that's from this spreadsheet here. I just happen to choose the new connections one here, and yeah, if I was to put a new row in here again, then it would pick that up and automatically do the same thing. You can put in your message or message template to use here, depending on where you've got that from, or include them into a campaign. You could maybe subscribe, roll them into a campaign, and then you can even put a delay in there as well. And that way you can then automatically, whenever your contact within your CRM changes status, or if you had a new record entered, for example, depending on the criteria, you can then dynamically have a message or carry out whatever action it is that you require against that URL. It is important to point out the URL needs to contain the https://www. If it's not a full URL, then Dux Soup will not be able to process it. It will not see it as a LinkedIn URL, and it will fail as an action. But what we'll see is if I just go to my Dux dash a second, if I look here at my queued activity, see they've always got that full URL there of the target. If it doesn't have that there, then it will not succeed. So it's important that you have that formatted in the correct way for it to work correctly. Okay.
Thank you very much. That's it from me. There's no questions from our users.
Cool. All right. Thank you for that, Jin, and I'll leave you to close everything down.
Thank you everyone for attending. Please note that the recording of this webinar will be sent to you after this webinar. And I hope to see you on our next webinar. Have a nice day. Bye.